Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Black Explained. In this week's episode we're going to talk about public figures and the abuse and ridicule that they receive by far-right groups, racist they're alike and somewhat. And when I say abuse, I mean dehumanization. It's more than just abuse, it's downright despicable. There are plenty of public figures to choose from. However, we're going to stick with just two, and that is Diane Abbott and Dawn Butler. They're both MPs, both female and both black. And it goes without saying that Britain has this long preconceived idea that they or it is not racist, and they've dealt with their racism problem, and let's point the finger at the USA or every other country and blah, blah, blah. But it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And I'm glad that these MPs, in fact, let's rephrase that. I'm not glad. I'm relieved that these two public figures have now spoken openly about the type of treatment that they've received over the years. And it goes towards helping equality and literally washing this country of its racism, bigotry, destructive tendencies to all lives matter. Because if all lives matter, then these two MPs wouldn't receive the type of abuse that they've received over the last, Diane Abbott, 30 years, Dawn Butler, for however long she's been an MP. Anyway, here's over to them.
But we have to be clear, we are not talking here about robust debates, however robust it is. We are talking about mindless abuse. And in my case, the mindless abuse has been characteristically racist and sexist. And just to outline, I've had death threats, I've had people tweeting that I should be hung if, quotes, they could find a tree big enough to take the fat bitch's weight. There was an EDL affiliated Twitter account, #burn Diane Abbott. I've had rape threats, described as a pathetic, useless, fat, black piece of shit, ugly, fat, black bitch, and nigger. Nigger over and over again. And one of my members of staff said that when people ask her, what is the most surprising thing about coming to work for me? The most surprising thing for her is how often she has to read the word nigger. And this comes in through emails, through Twitter, through Facebook.
So let's get this right. You are threatening to rape a nigger. A person who is of the lowest form. Not even that. Do you know what the word nigger means? But yet you want to stick your dick inside a dirty, fat nigger. Logic.
Hello again. Now, I'm joined in the studio by the Shadow Home Secretary, Diane Abbott. Hello to you. Thanks for coming in on a Sunday morning. Now, you've obviously been in the headlines a lot over the last few weeks, and I am keen to talk about some of those issues. But first, I think we should speak about the abuse that you've experienced. And you've been in Parliament now for 30 years, the first black woman to take your seat in Parliament. You've never spoken about this before, so why have you decided to speak out now?
It's the level of abuse, particularly in recent weeks. What we were getting, and have had for some time, is almost daily abuse, being called a bitch, a nigger, rape threats, people saying I should be hanged. And it reached a particular pitch in the last few weeks. And I thought to myself, had I known it would be like this 30 years on from being elected, I'd have thought twice for running for Parliament at all.
Really, that is actually quite shocking. And I'd like to, apologise for viewers for some of the language that we are going to listen to and have heard. think it is important, of course, to look at some of the examples of what we've actually seen. These are things that have been provided by your office, Diane Abbott. The violence and some of this language is obviously pretty shocking and appalling. A lot of it clearly is frankly racist as well. And I think it's important to say as well that these are the examples that we felt we could actually show on TV. There's stuff that is even more shocking than that.
Britain. We're so civilised.
Every week, I'm going to be speaking to someone who's hit the headlines, who's been in the thick of it. This week, the Labour MP Dawn Butler published an open letter revealing that she'd decided to close her constituency office in Willesden, in part because her staff had been attacked and verbally assaulted. She said the abuse had come after she'd defended the Black Lives Matter movement. And she joins me on the line now. Good afternoon.
Hey, afternoon, Kathy.
Dawn, thanks very much for joining me. Just, if you don't mind, if you could just take me through what happened in the days leading up to July the 8th, which was when you put out your letter on Wednesday. What happened to prompt you to close the constituency office?
Well, I had to make a decision on what I was going to do next with my constituency office, and the lease was coming up, and so I had to weigh up how much value for money we were going to get with the office, because the cost was going up. And then I weighed up the abuse that we've got over the last couple of years, and then the escalation of the abuse that's happened just over the last couple of weeks. And just putting all of those things together, and it's been a concern of mine for a while that I didn't feel that I was able to keep my team safe. And in the end, I just thought, with a heavy heart, that I had no choice but to close down my constituency office.
Give us a sense. I mean, I talked about some of it in the intro about your staff being attacked and verbally assaulted. Can you give us any more details about the kind of assaults that took place?
Wow. Well, we've had missile thrown through the window. We've had to have the windows replaced about 3 times.
Wow.
The main window, the window for the door, the side window, the back door. We've had a very understanding landlord who sort of replaced all of that. Then we had like the smash-proof window and the shield put on the window. We've taken as many security measures as we can, but we've had people leaving abusive messages on the answer machine saying that they're coming for us, and it's a real worry and a concern. And we work long hours, and ideally you want to have an office on the high street and be visible as an MP where people can just pop in. But it became more and more unsafe and unworkable. And actually, when Jo Cox was murdered, my friend, outside her office, it really got you thinking. And it was just too much. It was honestly just too much.
I mean, Dawn, you sound incredibly calm talking about it, but I'm hearing this for the first time. It's extraordinary that your office is relentlessly under attack. What kind of toll does that take on you and your staff?
Well, because it's not something that you really want to talk about, to be honest, because, the majority of people are great and amazing, and Brent is an amazing place. I kind of don't want people to think that this is something that happens often, in terms of sort of, it's something that we always have to deal with. But a lot of the people who, for instance, email me with death threats or on social media with death threats, they're not my constituents. They're from elsewhere. But it adds to that environment, and it adds to everything that happens. So it makes you on edge. So, just in last month alone, we reported probably near 1,000 bits of abusive correspondence.
1,000? Physical correspondence?
Yeah, physical correspondence. You take the Facebook, the Twitter, um, all of that, and emails. You know, people being really racist, really abusive, and with the Black Lives Matters movement, you know, the abuse just went through the roof. And as I say, these are not people in Brent that are abusing me, because you know, people say, you know, really, you know, if you don't like it, feel free to clear off to the black hole, you know, crime ridden, diseased and ugly just like you know, and you coming from Brent speaks volumes, you know, bugger off, you troublemaker, you know. So that person's obviously not from Brent. And people write things like, you know, I'm a traitor, placing my head on a spike outside the Tower of London is the punishment that I would have faced. You know, so you get all this stuff coming through,
Yeah.
literally on a daily basis, and you just have to weigh up whether it's worth the risk, and actually, it's just not worth the risk.
I mean, I should obviously apologise for the language if anyone was offended. It is clearly offensive, and it must be exhausting.
I didn't even read out the offensive ones.
Oh, God.
Cool, if you're offended by that, you should try and live black.
Then when you have high profile black women knowing everything that black women go through in terms of misogynoir, they become, heightened targets for this kind of abuse. Diane Abbott received over half of all abusive tweets sent to MPs during the 2017 election. And it's because black women, as Malcolm X famously said, the most unprotected, disrespected woman in America is the black woman. Well, I think that's pretty true for the UK as well. Black women aren't seen as being deemed of protection in the same way that white women are. They're seen as being less than human, as being sort of, you know, dirty and monstrous and masculine, and it makes them, legitimate targets for violence.
These two public figures are actually public servants. They've been voted in to protect our interest, we the people. Now, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with their politics, they're human beings. I don't necessarily agree with one of these women's politics, but she's a human being. And if she was of a different ethnicity, it would be the same situation. There's this common phrase that keeps going around the internet, and it's spoken by a lot of ignorant white people who refuse to believe that Black lives actually matter. And they replace it with all lives matter, which is like just dampening the movement. Black Lives Matter is about the systemic racism, which is a worldwide problem, which has been happening for centuries. These two public servants whom were voted in for us are massive examples of how we in the UK are failing. And when I say we, I mean we. That's people whom are black, whom are Asian, whom are white, Chinese, Arab, failing to unite together and say no, because we're allowing people to actually set the tone and literally tear people apart. Protect our government, protect our people. When I say our people, I don't mean just black people. I mean people whom reside within the UK. This is our country, our democracy, our rights. Just because we have freedom of speech does not mean we can preach hate, preach violence, sexual violence, because for any reason, white or black, but in this case specifically, these two women whom happen to be black women, talking about raping them and hanging them from trees. And yet Britain, yes, your Britain, my Britain, tries to profess that we are the most humane and civilized. Oh my gosh. Hypocrisy is not, it doesn't even cover it. Stop pointing the finger and fix this bloody country from inside. And fixing this country doesn't start with targeting people whom are of a minority background. It starts with fixing yourself, your prejudices. This is disgusting that people whom we have voted in are receiving these type of threats, are being attacked verbally, physically, and emotionally on a day-to-day basis. Shame on you, Britain. Shame on you.